Great. This is Tuesday, August 9th, 2022. The time is 6:30 p.m. This is the time set aside for the Northern Lebanon School District Board of Directors August regular meeting. I call this meeting to order. Director Murray, may we please have a flag salute and moment of silence? To the flag of the United States of America, to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Great, thank you. Mrs. Martin, may we please have a roll call?
Yes. Bucks. Here. England.
Here.
Present.
Szynski. Here. Murray. Here. Klein.
Present.
Marlowe.
Here.
Erdman.
Here.
Nom.
Present.
All members present.
Thank you. The next item on our agenda is the adoption of tonight's agenda. I assume everyone has had an opportunity to view it. May I please have a motion to adopt tonight's agenda?
So move.
Is there a second?
Second.
Second, Director England. Thank you. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of approving tonight's agenda, please say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. Item 3, presentations. Dr. Messinger, do we have any presentations this evening? Okay. We'll move on to then your superintendent's report.
Yeah, a couple of things to start out. I just wanted to hit on a couple of questions that came up last week. One, the question was asked about a generator. As I sent an email today, some bad news on the electrical panel that we've been waiting on, that got back ordered. So we are taking a look at the generator idea. We started out with that last week to get the specifications that we needed. It's a little more than just hooking up wires to a generator. And so, we'll have to see what happens there, but we certainly have them working on it. And we'll pass along information as we know that. I was also asked the question about the sub rate, and that's later on for tonight at $5. I sent you the amount of days, and then it was simply just multiplying that by $5, which came out to a little over 10,000. That number is probably a little bit high because that includes some of the people we're in for classified staff. So it's probably in the $9,000 to $10,000 range for $5 a day based on the number of days last year. And Director Ehrman, you had asked about Blue Mountain and whether or not that changes our classification. We did hear back from PIAA. They take the number of kids in grades 9, 10, and 11, and they use a percentage of 50%. So they have 14 kids in 9 through 11. So it would increase our count by 7 total kids. I certainly don't think it's going to make us any higher of a classification. But the other thing that Blue Mountain does need to do before any of this can happen, the ball's kind of going to be in their court. They do need to be a PIAA member in order to make this fully work. So he knows that. They're talking to PIAA, trying to figure out that. I explained to him that we're okay with the MOU, but then they certainly have to take care of their end of it. But it would count against the classification, but at 7 kids that we're not in danger of going any higher than what we currently are. Some other things that to put on your radar, one, beginning in September, I want to start taking a look at some high school, secondary scheduling things that have just been hanging around for a number of years, I'll say. First of all, I think we need to pay attention to opportunities that our seniors have. We have a lot of advanced placement coursework, but there's dual enrollment opportunities that I think we need to talk about. We've talked about the problem of seniors are not in the building at all, and certainly we want to give them opportunities to go out and do internships and things like that, and get college credits. That's all exciting, but at the same time, we'd like to see them too around the building, and so that's a challenge that we would love to talk about. We've talked about even some challenges for those kids that are really high academic and how it impacts band. From a scheduling standpoint, because we have 10 advanced placement courses. Well, we have 9 periods in a day. So it's hard to get kids to maybe drop an advanced placement course to participate in some of those things. So there's a number of things, as well as just the fact that right now, I believe from a high school standpoint, there are a lot of kids not going to college. And I don't think that there's anything wrong with that. There's a lot of fields right now, whether it's a 2-year degree somewhere, whether it's just going right into a trade. There's a lot of things that kids can get into that they're interested in that don't necessarily require the college degree. And we have programs like our tech programs, our family consumer science programs, our agriculture programs that are growing rapidly. More and more kids are wanting to do that. There's a lot of hands-on learning in those classes. And so we want to look at that. And my intention is to include students, teachers, board members, and parents again, and to get feedback and then develop a plan for us as a district. So that's coming up starting this fall. And the other one, Director Nam, just a reminder, we will probably need to start talking with teachers as our contract is up. And I think we have some volunteers for that, but probably September, we need to get the ball rolling on that as well. One last thing, and that's just to share that the Climate Committee worked over the summer. I think I mentioned that, but I do have a very large list of great ideas generated, and we continue to generate ideas almost on a daily basis. So we're going to a couple of different things. One, some of the things that we've been working on as a district, you'll see that as summer draws to an end and the school year gets here, I'm going to be asking some of our administrators to share some of the things that are going on at their levels. You're going to hear from Lee and Melissa about some of the stuff at the elementary level. And then we'll bring high school. We'll talk about some of those things as well. Give them an opportunity to just share some things with the board and the community as we go through the fall, but then also that climate committee. And frankly, that is something that we'd like those ideas to keep coming. Mrs. Bruce and I were talking just the other day about some additional summer camp opportunities. And we had started down a path the other week, and then the more we talk, the more ideas we come up with. So we're going to take those ideas though and try and highlight them throughout the year. So we'll have some speakers during that presentation time as we go once the summer draws to a close and people are back on a more regular schedule. So I think I hit all the little things for tonight, and then we'll talk more as we go through this, but that's my report.
Great. Thank you, Dr. Messinger. Any questions for the superintendent?
One question. So I understand what you mean. If there's 14 kids at Blue Mountain, they're taking 50%. Was that already done for this set of classifications?
No, enrollment figures like that, they take that enrollment and then that's determined for, I think it's a 2-year period. And then they don't look at that again until that period is over.
Because I was just looking and we're five kids over, boys over into quad A. So if
You think we
those-
could drop a class?
Yeah, we could actually be AAA, but I didn't know if those 7 were included in the number for this new 2-year
No, it's
cycle.
not in that number. right
Okay,
now.
so even with,
No, it won't.
gotcha.
And we can do some more research on that in terms of, but that number can change almost on a daily basis based on enrollments and,
Yeah.
and in August tends to be a time where we do get a lot of enrollments. It certainly changes from year to year. 2 of our 3 biggest classes, they're all in the secondary at this point, but 2 of our 3 biggest classes would be the 9th grade class and the 10th grade class. So when those 2 classes get through, and they're close to 200, which is 30 to 40 more kids than almost every other grade level. So when those 2 roll off, we may be well into that AAA category. But I'll have Dr. Kuiper find out when the cycle is up and we can talk about that.
Any other questions? No, regarding the collective bargaining agreement negotiation team, I have received interest from, I think, 3 directors, but if you're also interested in being a part of that team, please message me individually and we'll form that team for next month, okay? All right, we'll move on to item 5, which is old business. Does any director have old business to bring to the board? Hearing none, we'll move to item 6. This is the public comment portion of our meeting. Interested persons were asked to complete a written request to address the board by 3 p.m. this afternoon to participate in the public input session. As far as I'm aware, there have been no requests for public input. Mrs. Martin, are there any since the meeting has started?
No, that is correct. No one requested.
Okay, I understand there is no public comment. With that being said, we will move to item 7. This is the items for board action, which includes both our consent and our discussion agenda. It should be noted that public notice was given for this meeting in accordance with Act 84 of 1986. By notice of the president, the following action requires a voice vote. All votes in favor shall be stated with an aye or yes. All votes opposed shall be stated with a nay or no. All members abstaining shall state I abstain when prompted. The votes will be recorded in the minutes as a unanimous roll call vote unless there are any votes in opposition or abstention. If necessary, the president may subsequently call for a roll call vote to be recorded in the minutes. Item 8 on our agenda is the consent agenda. The consent agenda consists of, let's make sure I've got the right number of items, consists of 8 items, 8.1 through 8.8. These were discussed at the committee meeting last week. Dr. Messinger, do you have anything to point out with any of these items?
I don't know. The only changes to it I mentioned in the email was just to make sure that coaches list was updated, but everything else is good to go as we talked about last week.
Great. Are there any questions regarding tonight's consent agenda? Okay, we will vote on all of the items within the consent agenda. Items 8.1 through 8.8. Is there a motion to adopt those items?
Motion to adopt.
Is there a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, we'll take a vote. All in favor of adopting the consent agenda, please indicate with a yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
I abstain since a family member is up for substitute, and also, is that under this? That's not under this one.
No,
I'm sorry.
that's on the discussion. Yep, you're fine. Okay. No abstentions? Okay. That is a unanimous vote. The motion carries. We'll move on to item 9, which is our discussion agenda. Dr. Messinger, item 9.1.
Yeah, we talked about this last week and just wanted to open it up if there is any discussion on it. Just to look at the substitute rate and to look around the county, and recommended to move that from 120 a day to 125 a day. As I mentioned, I had sent the number of days and the cost that would have been. I'm going to say, obviously the days from year to year vary. But if it's around the same amount of days, we're looking at around about $9,000 to $10,000 difference in that $5 a day. And that includes the building substitute that we use on a daily basis. Any questions on that? You want me to go through more, or are you gonna do one at a time?
think. Got a text from the solicitor. I'm just seeing what that is. Oh, no issues. Okay, I think unless there are any questions on item 8.1 or any questions going forward, I'm sorry, 9.1, thank you. We will vote on more than one at a time. So I'll just poll the board members. Are there any questions or any points of discussion for 9.1? Hearing none, then we will move on to 9.2.
9.2 is simply our Title III LL Lebanon Lancaster IU 13 agreement. That's an annual agreement.
Again, are there any points for discussion or questions regarding 9.2? Okay, then we will move to 9.3.
9.3 is an agreement, a contract for some psychology support until we find school psychologists are in demand, and we currently are looking for one. But until that is filled, we are going to enlist some services. And Kelly did ensure with the agreement that we can dismiss them. We do not have to stick. We have them for the year if we need them for the year, but we don't have to stick to that. We can give them, it's 30 days, I believe. So, yep. And we can send them on their merry way. And as we have someone that we are interested in hiring here at Northern Lebanon.
Great. Any questions regarding 9.3? Okay, because item 9.4 is a new item for discussion, we will vote on items 9.1 through 9.3 at this time. Is there a motion to adopt those three items?
So moved.
Thank you. Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All in favor of approving items 9.1, 9.2, and 9.3, please indicate with a yes.
Yes.
All opposed, no. Any abstentions?
I would
Hearing-
abstain from 9.1 since I would have a family member.
Great, thank you. And I apologize, Director England, for cueing you improperly on the
Actually,
the prior
I
item.
think if I'm correct, 8.8, I should abstain from that one since that would be the list of substitutes.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
We will, Mrs. Martin, if we could amend the vote on item 8.8 for human relations to mark Director England's abstention. Okay, with that said, recognizing Director England's abstention on 9.1, all other items are unanimous and the motion carries for adoption of 9.1 through 9.3. We'll move on to 9.4. This is a new item regarding real estate transaction potential.
Yeah, as we've mentioned, the lot across the street next to where we're building the elementary school and the lot that holds that the barn near the softball field and the house, which actually extends across 22 and then all the way down to the intersection, that farmland. Both of those lots are for sale. That's land that we've always said, oh, it'd be nice to have that since it connects. I'm probably slightly more interested personally myself in the farm or the barn and the house, not quite as much across the 22, but there may be a future use for that. And certainly next to the elementary school, that's intriguing. As you know, it's zoned commercial highway, and the price it corresponds to, I think, what they see as potential. And that land across the street where the elementary school is, they've priced at $2.8 million, and the other one at 2.4. That's that right? 2.4. Okay. So, and I know we've shared those numbers at some point, but so the discussion is whether or not how much you want us to dig into this. Do we want to try to feel out whether or not they would accept less than that? I was emailed just recently by Bell and Evans, as I mentioned, that I was trying to set up a meeting with them. I know that they are always looking for land, so I thought it'd be good to have a conversation with them, see if I don't know if they'll share that with us, but it's certainly worth trying to see if they have any interest. trying to arrange a breakfast for next week. So, that part of it we can certainly do. But really want to hear from the board if it's something you'd like us to continue to look into, or if not, we'll just sit tight and see what happens for now.
So before we open it up to questions, I would just note that tonight's motion, at least as it's been adopted on the agenda, is a motion just for the district to explore and investigate the possibility of purchasing. So this is not a vote tonight to move forward with any purchase. Discussion tonight should not include any conversation as to strategy or pricing or thoughts that we might have in that regard. Again, this is just whether we think this is something that we should explore and investigate. So with that caveat stated, what questions do the directors have for Dr. Messinger regarding this item?
I have a real quick question. Do we know what an outside assessment value of those two pieces of land are?
Yeah, they've both been assessed. We looked at this together. Do you recall off the top of your head? Way less. Yes. Yes. Yeah, but what's the assessed value? I want to say that was 400 some thousand, and the other one was 600 some thousand. The other one has buildings on it.
Were those assessment values acquired about maybe 10 years ago when Lebanon County did all of the reassessments of homes? Wow. I would have expected that to be higher.
I mean, one of
Only
the
assess homes high at that point.
one of the things I think, would need to happen, certainly if we get to the point where we're really interested, we would want an appraisal of that. Do you happen to know? I'm throwing questions at you that we didn't really talk about. You don't happen to know what an appraisal would cost? Okay. I know. Previous life.
I would suggest that this vote would include the investigation of an appraisal as well. Any other questions regarding item 9.5? Okay, with that said, is there a motion? I'm sorry, 9.4, I apologize. Is there a motion for 9.4 to explore purchasing option for real estate connected to district property?
Motion to explore.
Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you. Is there any discussion?
I would just add that, look, I think this is incredibly important, both short-term and long-term for us as a district. We are, as we go through our building plan here and we're building a new school, we're obviously shedding some property in the district. And whether that's sports fields or even, as Dr. Messinger said, some of these non-traditional programs, that kids are following, like ag, which is growing for us. Having that land for programs like that might be strategic. So I think the exploration makes a lot of sense. Along with that, I think as a school, you want to kind of buffer yourself from development and other things. So I think from that standpoint, exploring this to try to understand and maybe, filter or buffer ourselves a little bit makes some sense. So I think it's prudent to go down this path, explore it, get an appraisal, really understand what the property is worth. So I think it's a good idea.
And I would echo that. I believe it's worth our time to look into it. And I think to me, this is more about publicly stating that we're doing that. Obviously, it's not a commitment to buy. Mrs. Martin and I could have done some preliminary investigation without probably a public vote. But at the same time, I think it's important for us to be upfront about our interest in it. And so this is an opportunity for us to publicly state, yeah, we'd love to have it. And if they want to sell it to us for $50, we'll take it. So.
Any other discussion? I would also just like to note, I do believe that it at least falls within the realm of due diligence for us to look into it. Whether it's an up or a down, I think it behooves us to take a look into it for the reasons that Director Marlowe stated and Dr. Messinger as well. Any other discussion? Okay, hearing none, we will proceed with a simultaneous voice vote. If need be, we will transition to a roll call vote. There has been a motion and a second. All in favor of proceeding with item 9.4, please indicate with a yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? My vote is also a yes. With that said, that is then a unanimous vote and the motion carries. We'll move on to 9.5.
Yeah, 9.5, we just had a couple of mentors to add from the previous list for employees for this year. Would you like me to go to employment 9.6?
Yes, please do.
Okay. For employment, folks, for you there, our German teacher. Thank you, Mrs. Bruce, for helping to find that and getting creative. This is someone who is minored in German and taught in Germany, actually taught English in Germany. And she was willing to do an emergency cert for this year, which we had kids register for that class, for those classes. So we're excited to be able to continue to offer that. Mr. Hubbard as our billing sub, our full-time professional sub. Michelle Lowen has agreed to, she interviewed, we had a number of applicants and offered her the transportation specialist job. And then also Leanne Snyder as an instructional aide at Jonestown Elementary.
Is there any interest in discussion on this item? Okay, hearing none, we'll move on to 9.7, Dr. Messinger.
Yeah, 9.7, we will be putting together, as long as this date tells us to, a health and safety plan template for you each year, guidance each year through the use of their template. It has to be looked at every 6 months and then voted on, even if there's no revisions. There were a few small tweaks, just to some clarifying language. And I also had received tonight 2 grammatical things that I need to reword. It doesn't change anything other than, for instance, parents have the option for full-time in-person learning. It should say for students, not for them. We're not putting parents through school. And the next bullet point as well. And they still have the 3 option and they still have the in-person option. However, this needs to be reviewed and approved every 6 months. That is a requirement of the ESSER grants. So we put that in front of you at this time, and then again we'll put it up again in 6 months.
Any questions regarding the health and safety plan for this year? Hearing none, is there any interest in discussing this item? Hearing and seeing none, we'll move on to 9.8.
And finally, a personal care assistant, Ms. Clark, who is leaving us for personal reasons.
Any questions? Okay, with that, we have items 9.5, 9.6, 9.7, and 9.8 to vote on. Is there a motion to adopt those 4 items? Is there a second?
Second.
We'll count Director England as the second, just because I happen to be looking to my right at the time. Okay, we have a motion and we have a second. Is there any discussion? Hearing none, all in favor of adopting 9.5, 9.6, 9.7, and 9.8, please indicate with a yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, motion carries. It's a unanimous vote. And we will move on to item 10.
Yeah, a couple of informational items. One, the annual staff listing was attached for you. We did highlight new hires and transfers for the year, so you're aware of those. The YMCA will be utilizing Jonestown again for before and after school. We have the student teaching list from LVC. We have some students joining us, and those are listed there as well for you.
Any questions? Okay, we will move on to item 11, reports of representatives. The first is the Change Order Committee. Director Bucks, anything to report?
Nothing, as I recall, nothing of significance. We did get a few refunds, but all of those are recorded and available on the web.
Okay, great, thank you. CTC, Director Klein.
The CTC did not hold a a meeting last month.
IU 13, Director Murray.
But
Okay.
while we have you, you do have something. Maybe we could share that with.
Gone. Sorry. Okay. I thought I was loud enough. That's right. So it was a privilege to be presented. Raven presented this to us on the stage with loud booming music. If you've never been in an FFA national convention, it is loud. If you have not seen Elijah Delgado do his beatboxing, he actually won the talent contest at the state convention and state college. So he represented Northern Lebanon well as well. So it was a good time for everybody that was there. And so I'd like to present this to Dr. Ebert on behalf of the state FFA officers and then
Director Murray.
Great. Thank you, Director Murray.
welcome.
Legislative Liaison, Director Kimball Tazinski. Anything to report?
Nothing to follow that up.
PSBA Liaison, Director Bucks. Anything?
No report this month.
Thank you. That takes us to item 12, which is our new business. Tonight, we do have one item of new business that was put on the agenda prior to the meeting tonight, and that is potential discussion on a draft. This is not a draft proposed policy. This is just a draft policy that the administrative team, of which I was participating in, prepared regarding electronic devices. I'll turn it over to you in a second, Dr. Messinger, but from my perspective, this is an attempt for us to comport our electronic device policy with at least what we've said that it would do over the past year. So this is to update that policy. It's also in response to concerns that we've heard both from community members and board members as well regarding a perceived need to bolster our electronic device policy and to marry that with the handbook that the administrative team has been working on for the students this year. The intent, and I don't mean to steal any thunder, but the intent for this is to get a proposed policy, hopefully by September, that we can vote on, but we've circulated this for you for your review and questions. And I believe Dr. Ebert is here as well to answer any questions that we might have regarding how this might apply to the secondary school. So Dr. Messinger, anything?
Yeah, this came out of I've been talking about the discipline committee since January, and this came out of that discipline committee along with some other things that I think were good clarifications for the handbook and discussions. But cell phones seem to revolve. There seemed to be a lot of discussion about cell phones and just how prevalent they are. And frankly, I've mentioned it before that when it dings or it lights up, it's a distraction. Frankly, if you read the old board policy, that there is no use during the school day of electronic devices. And now that policy is old. We knew we needed to look at it and update it, just like any old policy that we have as we continue to work through our policies. And we had some things in the handbook that didn't quite align because we've allowed some cell phone usage, and that didn't align with policy. You never want that to happen. So the discipline committee looked at this very carefully. I think that we sent a survey to staff, if you recall. One of the things that we did discover was it's looked at a little differently at the two levels. At the middle school level, it's looked at more of really a distraction at the high school level. Some teachers feel like sometimes it's even used for educational purposes, but also understand that some of those kids can maybe use it a little more responsibly or under specific guidelines. So I think the first thing they tried to do was go through the current handbook and make some clarifications that are more easily outline what students can do and what is not acceptable. Certainly videotaping someone without their knowledge and then posting on social media, that's not okay. So it more clearly defines some things. I think the second thing that they wanted to do was outline some of the consequences that occur if it's being used inappropriately, so that students are more aware of that. And I think they were successful in doing that. At the middle school level, we really didn't change much. We maybe reworded it. It sounds a little bit, it may sound a little more clear, but actually cell phones were supposed to be in book bags or in lockers before. And that is still the case during the instructional day. So they put together what they proposed for the handbook. We sent it to Stock and Leader. We just received it back. I've sent that to you to take a look at. And really the question becomes, as long as the board's comfortable with that, because what we don't want to do is we don't want to publicize it in the handbook, which it's almost time for us to do that. And then have us rewrite that policy and the board not, if we don't want the policy to say those things, then, we should revise the handbook. So what we tried to do was send a very, very rough policy, but in that policy, that example that I sent you, you can clearly see that there's a stance by the board that understands that cell phones are a part of everyday life. However, we don't want them to be a distraction here at school, and we certainly don't want them to be used inappropriately or even illegally. And so it defines that, but it gives administration the opportunity to set guidelines, which is what we're doing through the handbook for what appropriate cell phone usage looks like. I'll give you an example. One of the things that we feel is something that probably helps us from a disciplinary standpoint is kids plug in those earphones on the way home on the bus and listen to music. A lot of them, and that probably actually helps keep them out of trouble. So that's not a problem. That has not been a problem, and so therefore we want to have the freedom to be able to do things like that. So I'll open it up to discussion. That committee worked on it. We started talking about that almost in January, I think. And then finally, come June is when they finalized the pieces for the handbook. And Dr. Ebert was part of that committee, so he's here to help answer any questions as well. But if what's in the handbook looks okay, then the next step would be for us to get back to that policy, fine tune it, get it to Stock and Leader, and bring back a tentative policy for approval in September.
Questions or discussion?
I have one thing I'd like to know about what you sent out about what might be in the handbook. And this is something that at the college level, I always tell my students that, we want cell phones away during class. They're a distraction, but there's always exceptions. If you're waiting on an important text saying your kid got their ride home or grandma got out of surgery or something, just let me know ahead at the beginning of class. And when I see you looking at your phone, I'm not going to scowl at you. So I think there should be something in there, some sort of exclusionary thing saying, if a student is waiting on some sort of important notification from their family for some personal matter or something like that, they should just let the teacher know at the start of class, if that would be something that other people would think is appropriate. There are probably very few exceptions like that, but there are times when a middle school student would want that outside contact, at least I feel. The other thing that I thought about was if a student is having a particularly rough day, whether it's bullying or maybe some stuff at home is going on, and they just need to connect with a parent. I mean, obviously, we're hoping students become independent as they're growing up, but sometimes that connection is important. If they need to have a text conversation or a phone conversation, maybe they could just either ask the teacher if they can go outside in the hall or be sent to the guidance office where they could have that connection and it not be interfering with class and looked down as if they're breaking the rules.
I think I'll start with the second one because the other thing we did talk about was potentially, a student is supposed to have an after school club or practice or a game. And, it might be in Lancaster and it's raining and they want to contact their parent to inform them that the game's been canceled or something like that. And Dr. Ebert, you correct me or speak up. And I'll go back to the guidance. I would think probably our recommendation would be for them to go to guidance, talk to the guidance counselor, and then the guidance counselor and student would determine whether or not they needed to call home and the mode, whether they called home on their cell phone or they called home via the guidance office phone. Certainly, I think there is a caveat to go to the office and ask to use a phone in the case of like a canceled sporting event. Did you want to speak to that part of it?
Yeah. One of the things I do want to add, because I remember when I went to school, I didn't have a cell phone, and we did find out ways of getting those communications out and things of that nature. But if there's a situation where someone is in distress, whether it be perceived bullying, things of that nature, we want them to go to the nearest adult and go to guidance, come to the administration so that we can be there immediately, because the parent's still going to be 5-10 minutes plus away or at work and maybe longer. So they're there for that immediate support. And I've always advocated for a student, if it helps that what's going to help you right now is to talk to mom, let's get mom on the phone right now. If I feel like I need to step out so they can have a private conversation, I'll step out of my office to do so. So that's always been there in that case for even a high school student or a middle school student. We also do have a phone in the secondary office. So if they want to come down and get connected with there, usually for non-private matters, because it's out there in the office. But if it's more private, then all they need to do is ask and request, and we can find an office for them to make those conversations and that kind of stuff. So that's always there. And also in this day and age, we have means of getting those communications out by something getting canceled. I know a lot of the teachers and club advisors and coaches, they're on those group. They have those means of communicating that way as well. And when it comes to the middle school, also, we made sure that at 2:30, when they're done, at that point, they can pull out their phones and communicate if classes or a game's been canceled or something. Hey, mom, don't go there. I'm going to be going home right now. So those kind of things do also have that caveat there.
As far as the first thing, there is room in the policy for exceptions for administration. I mean, I would certainly want that to be few and far between. I know that in the past we've you open things up. My experience has been you open things up for parents to be able to write notes, to be able to do certain things, and you get a slew of them. And some of them are legitimate and some of them aren't. And it's difficult sometimes to ascertain what really is legitimate and what isn't. So I would want that to be, I don't know that I would necessarily write that directly in. I think that would be more of a case by case discussion with the administration about something going on at home. Not that we even always need to know the details, but I would think those would be few and far between. I mean, I'm going to say that knowing Dr. Ebert, I don't think he'd have any trouble in a situation that he felt would be a legitimate exception to say, okay, we're going to do this. But then you have the problem of that student's got their cell phone out and other kids are wondering why that student has their cell. So there's some things to work through there with that. We'd have to think about, I think the policy gives them the ability to do it, but we'd have to really think about the logistics of what that looks like, I think.
And I would say we would work as a team, whether it be a guidance counselor, administrator, parent, the student, all that, to see if there's maybe another alternative that still applies with this policy and another means of way of meeting their needs. Like I said, there's a lot of things out there that we've done before, and how do we do it? We just need to revisit those practices that we had done before to meet the needs of the individuals in that situation. And we do have parents that will call in, can you just deliver this message? What we do is we just wait till the middle of the period and then we call Johnny down and say, here, mom says, make sure that you go home on the bus today. Your appointment's canceled. And we've done that before and we'll do it again.
I think we've also, I've experienced situations where the parent will give us a heads up, hey, grandpa's not doing so well. you may get a phone call. And typically what we've tried to do is say, okay, well, when you call in, ask for the guidance counselor. We'll have the guidance counselor go get your child, and then we'll have them wait with the guidance counselor until you get here so you can tell them, or we'll put them on the phone with you, whichever way they prefer. And we've tried to handle some of those. That's been my experience as an administrator, to try to handle it that way, which gives us then the ability to have an adult there with them waiting for their parent in a situation which may be highly stressful for that student as well. I would say we'd probably prefer to do it that way than for them to have the cell phone, particularly probably at the middle school level. That's my gut on it, although I don't think it's something we talked about during the committee. Yeah. Does that make sense?
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Ebert, what in your experience and the administration's experience is the largest disruptions to education that we experience from cell phones at this point?
It's varied, to be honest with you. I'll be honest, like, I have been researching this topic since cell phones became an issue in a high school setting when I was an administrator in a previous district, and working through those things. It's just the fact that when it dings, your mind is not on your calculus or your English or whatever you're doing right now. And it's not just your brain that just fired up at that point. It's everybody that heard that ding, because we become so attuned to, oh, there's something that's going on right now. I need to go check it out. It's been a distraction in an aspect. And we also realize that when it comes to high schoolers, they're going to be more involved in that situation, that they need to check with a boss and whatever. And that's why we did the caveat between periods for them. And they're a little bit more mature, and they find those balances and that kind of stuff. I would say that's just a distraction aspect, but then it does come down to those disciplinary situations. Everybody knows we've had this past year with the TikTok challenges and things of that nature. So when those things come up, people went into that, and that becomes a bigger disruption than what it was before. Someone gets into an altercation, and now you have video of that, and it becomes a much bigger issue. It doesn't mean that we shouldn't address it, and it's not serious. It is. But then you're tracking down a lot of rumors and before you can get the true facts out or address it in an appropriate way.
Okay, thank you.
And just to add some levity, even my dogs are trained, because I have a Life 360 app, not an advertisement, but I have a Life 360 app. And when the kids get home, when my wife gets home and the kids get home, it makes this noise, and my dogs now know the noise. So they immediately get up off the couch, go over to the window to look out the window until the car comes in the driveway and go bananas. So even the dogs are trained to respond to the cell phone at this point. So
Good. It's just not my dog. I'm glad to hear it's others too.
yeah.
One of the things is, I mean, I once we're done here and we are solidified and everything's done with the board, one of the things I do want to communicate that out to the parents and the students prior to the start of the school year. We have that aspect. We started with a building level summer gathering that we had with a lot of staff. We had over 30 or 40 staff there. They were all very supportive of this. And when we come back to in the first days with in-services, it's going to be emphasized, and we will be out and about, and we will be monitoring it. The building, the administration, everybody will be monitoring this, because the consistency, as you know, is the key thing. If you have one person saying, I'm not going to follow this, then everybody is going to be going to their next year teachers. Well, Mr. Smith doesn't do it. And then it starts that down line. But the reality is, if I'm going to hear that Mr. Smith's not doing it, I'm going to go address it, because that's what we need. And it's not just because of following rules. It's a matter of, we need to make sure that these tools are used for the right reasons, and they're not being there for a distraction. And that's what we need. And like I said, all of the staff that I worked with on last Tuesday, when we went through the entire thing, they were like, finally, thank you. And even with the students, I think there's several that I spoke to last year. we can get this out of here and then we can just truly be focusing on what we're here to be for, and just working together, it would be a lot better. Well, I give a lot of credit to the entire committee on a lot of, even the climate committee helped with some of that aspect. People see a need and they're coming to raise up to make sure that they help support that. Yep.
From a policy perspective and enforcement, what, in your opinion, would be the most important thing for us to incorporate within a policy to assist you as an administration? And that's kind of an ambush. Probably haven't thought about that. I'm good at this.
In terms of that, I would just say that it's in line with this. When as I always talk to a lot of staff and even administrators, there's two different big P words in when it comes to administration. There's policy and there's procedure. We just need the policy to match up with the procedure. When they're online, things go a lot smoother. And as Dr. Messenger indicated, if they're not in alignment, then that's when all the cracks in foundation formed at. So not that I want to say you got to design the policy to match this procedure, but in a sense, that's what I would be asking for, because this is what a lot of other schools have worked towards. And we've taken information from them and we found success with that aspect of things. That's what I would end up saying.
Great. Thank you. I think that's what I wanted to hear.
I'll also say you can just take my son's on the first day because he's not going to last all year without it anyway. So you might as well just confiscate it from day one.
Okay, great. Any other questions or discussion? Director Bucks?
Just one more, perhaps reiteration, just to be fully clear, what you have proposed to be in the handbook is what the large majority of teachers, admin, and support staff support. Is that correct?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Good question. Anything else? Okay, well, thank you, Dr. Ebert. Thank you for being available for questions. We will endeavor then to have a formal draft policy for the committee meeting in September. So between now and then, I would just ask that the directors take a look at what you have been provided. Send any questions that you have for clarification. We'd like this, of course, to be the best document that we can have it to be before we put it up for a vote. And obviously there's going to be some gap between when the handbook goes into place and when this policy goes into place, but hopefully it won't be a large gap. We'll be right on the heels of it. So, okay.
Regarding the proposed policy or draft policy, it makes no mention of Apple Watches, smart watches, or Fitbits, some of which can receive messages or send messages. So we would need to incorporate that as well.
Great. Thank you. Very good. Yeah, and one of the things too is that we recognize the old policy referenced pagers and all sorts of other things. We attempted to update this to bring it into the 21st century. So thank you for that. That takes us even further. Okay. Any other discussion or questions on this item? If not, then I would just direct you to item 14. These are the dates to remember. We will have, again, 2 board meetings next month, both a committee meeting and a regular meeting. Dr. Messinger, you have something else?
Sorry, I just want to also, if you are free, the first teacher in service day, which is the 24th, we have a welcome back breakfast in the morning, followed by an assembly where we recognize teachers' milestones, and then a few little, welcome back kinds of things. Board members are certainly welcome to attend that if you're free to do so. I think breakfast starts 7:30 breakfast starts, and then we meet in the auditorium at 8:30. You remember? I'll let you know, around 9. So an hour and a half to eat, but there is bacon, so it takes a while.
Great, thank you. With that, then we will move to adjournment. Is there a motion to adjourn tonight's meeting?
Motion to adjourn.
Thank you. Is there a second? All in favor of adjourning the meeting, please indicate with a yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? Hearing none, this meeting is adjourned. Thank you.
Thank you. Good night.